Hi, welcome to the video podcast of Product Manager Thought Collectives. Today, we're joined by Peter Wang, who is the former BuzzFeed CTO and also the founder of First Principle Studio and Wisdom Water. And Peter is a friend of mine. Thank you for joining. And then we met in person not that long ago. So kind of my first question would be, how would you introduce yourself to a friend you haven't caught up for a while, even though we met pretty recently? For somebody who you haven't met for a while, what are some major updates from your end over the last 1 to 2 years?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I know you and I have been trying to get together for a while, and welcome back from China as well.
Yes.
Very brave of you to do this interview the day after coming back from China, because I would have rescheduled for the jet lag.
My family, we just don't have jet lag. I don't know why. Hopefully we keep it this way. We just don't. I don't know, just
wow.
Our body can adjust very well, I guess.
I'm the opposite. Okay, so how I introduce myself to people who, last 1 or 2 years. Well, a lot has changed the last year or so. I mean, I left BuzzFeed at the beginning of last year. And instead of jumping right back into the corporate environment, maybe I should shorten this answer or introduction. I really took a deep dive into what's the term for this? So buy then build. What's the term for this? Give me 1 second. We'll probably edit this piece.
It's like an search acquisition, right?
Oh yeah, acquisition entrepreneurship. That's
yes,
right.
Acquisition. Yeah, I have another friend who I interviewed before. He's doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, this something. So, a couple things happened. One is, I think, after almost 20 years in tech, I really had to think about what I want to focus on, and also being in the early 40s, what do I want to focus on for the next couple of years. Every life event gives you a window to reflect, like what COVID did for people, right? We get married, we have a baby, right? Everything, we get job changes. So this one, I went back to the book called Buy Then Build. I was like, hey, I've read this book before, didn't have time to really think about it, but now I could. Should I? And I'm like, okay, cool. I gave myself 6 months. I'm like, I'm gonna give myself 6 months to redo this thing. Long story short, I did end up acquiring water brand, which I then turned into something called Wisdom Water. But along the way, I also did a deep dive into AI, which I continue to just stay abreast of what it is, and this we should continue to prototype. But nothing has come out in a way where I feel like that is the next big thing, but I will continue to explore. Yeah, for folks. And then investing wise, I continue to do. I've been doing that for the last 15 plus years, which has always been part of me. So I'll continue to do investing on my own. But actually, I would say this though. It is interesting. I have been doing a lot of reflection on, and actually a friend of mine who is now my co-host for my podcast, Bold and Wiser. Her name is Michelle Kramer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about this thing, which I can share on this podcast, it's called we call it the third wave right now. And you and I have not talked about this. It's like for people who are in the middle of their career, has some success already, and really want to consider, only in the old days, people talk about working for 20 years and then retirement.
Yep.
Almost like the 2 stages. So really between, there's like a third stage where people have opportunities to do something different than just continue on their career trajectory. And it could be very different for different people. And I think I'm in that third wave, if you will, of how do I make a living and design my life in a way that's much more portfolio-like than a single job approach.
I love that description that, after many years in tech, right, you have accumulated wealth. You can have the freedom to pursue what you always want to do or explore different paths that's not limiting to just being in tech, climbing the corporate ladder. So now you can explore, what does it feel like to be a CEO of a water business, right? How do you do marketing for this? Maybe that's something you always wanted to do, but didn't have time or didn't have the bandwidth. So yeah, the third wave sounds amazing. That is related to our second question, which is, what's your path into engineering leadership and becoming CTO of a few large media companies like Refinery29 and BuzzFeed? I asked similar questions to product managers because everybody has different paths. So I would love to learn more about your path into the CTO.
Yeah, I felt my path as being quite unconventional in some ways, meaning it wasn't something I planned to do. It wasn't an aspiration that I aimed for and therefore got there. Maybe a bit more about me, just the way I work. I think at the core of me, I'm more like a maker / designer. So meaning like the creative aspect is important to me of like imagining something and making something happen. So the maker part is being really the core of it. And when I first started in career, because I went to school in Carnegie Mellon, studied computer science and electrical engineering in the early 2000s. And at the time, you either go to finance consulting or I think at the time would be hardware tech, right? Or Microsoft, Intel kind of companies. My first leg of career was actually in financial services on the IT operations and business side. So I went through three different banks, Bank New York Mellon, the custodian business, UBS and investment banking operations, and then Citi Barney wealth management. By then, I've already switched over to the business side, which in this case actually is more product management in the tech terms. And though actually that very first chapter really taught me about capital markets and how does financial markets work, which is actually very valuable. Unexpectedly, I wasn't thinking that's what I want to learn about securities. And it also taught me quite a bit about personal finance, especially in the wealth management years. And then also taught me to be very professional, because in those institutions, you got to be professional. Otherwise, you would not be seen as someone credible. Then I went to the startup world. After the financial crisis I was part of the Morgan Stanley Smith Barney JV, and that was a pretty tough 1 year. And I was in New York at the time, and Buddy Media came calling over LinkedIn, actually. And after a month of sitting on that message on LinkedIn, I said, okay, let me go for the interview and let me see what the startup's about. That was actually my foray into the tech space, quote unquote tech space. So a lot of times by luck. And Buddy Media really launched me into the startup world. So I left finance into startup. And then I went through 6 different VC-backed startups. And I would say my path to CTO, when I, from Buddy Media, which was acquired by Salesforce, fairly quickly, I think within 2 years of me joining. So that was work, but also very much lucky. I went to that tech company, AppSavvy. That expanded my role into product management as well. And then from there, I went to Refinery29 as CTO. And actually, I still remember when I became CTO, it was just headhunters led me to that role. I remember looking and reading Amazon CTO's blog. I don't know if you read this before. It's called like 4 Types of CTO. I still remember that blog because it made a big impression for me. And I was thinking, I'm going to be a CTO for the first time. What kind of CTO am I going to become? And I think he listed out 4 different kinds, whether it's infrastructure manager, whether you are I should look it up somewhere. I should say infrastructure manager. Second one's like tech visionary and ops. The third is like external or client facing, customer facing. And the fourth one is like, you are just a big thinker who is focused on valuing technology overall. And I remember like, okay, reading these, I'm more for the Refinery29. I need to be more client facing and tech, and ops focused. Anyway, so that's actually maybe something we can share in your podcast for people to decide. And depending on the phase of the company and the role, what the company needs, you as a CTO, you'll move between those 4 kinds of CTO.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. I'll definitely find the article and then link it in the newsletter later. So I think similar that there are people that describing different types of product managers, right?
Oh yeah. Yes. There
are different types. There's like customer facing type. There's, API driven platform product managers. Yep. So kind of related to the question we just discussed is that as an engineering leader, and now you're an investor, advisor / business owner. What are some good traits of product managers that you highly value? I mean, you mentioned you yourself, you have done some overlapping work as in product management. So what are some good traits that when you look back, like, that person is great because this person has done blah, 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 blah really well. So I'd love to learn more from you on the engineering leaders.
Yeah, because in my CTO roles, I also owned the product function, which really gave me a firsthand experience of really thinking about what type of product, matching to what type of product managers, to match it to what type of, I would say support roles or complementary, whether designers, data scientists, engineers fit with the product, building the product, and then matching with what type of business, or / monetization method. Really all needs to come together. I would say a few things. Actually, I want to go back one point real quick. I feel like when I talk to people often pigeonhole you into the type of person you are, whether by title, right, by nationality, by where you live, many ways to stereotype. And when I'm like, okay, I'm a maker, probably at heart, entrepreneur, an investor, people are like, how do you do, it's so confusing. How do you do these things? And actually, I was thinking about this. They're all so related. Like a maker is just someone who is passionate about creating products that didn't exist or improving on products. So those people are good at probably noticing flaws and saying, oh, that can be done better, or that thing should exist. An entrepreneur is someone who can make the product into a business. So not just the product itself, and say, how do we make a business out of this? And let's say, for example, in Wisdom Water, the product itself exists. Water is a product that exists for hundreds of years. And how do you then package the product in a way, differentiate in a way, and make that into a business is really the role of entrepreneur right now. An investor is someone who is thinking about capital primarily as a tool to help entrepreneur build businesses. And actually, entrepreneurs should think like investors too, because you are allocating, entrepreneur may be allocating existing asset like your money. An investor is putting in money. So these three are like three circles, but there's so much overlap between the three. And I think it's maybe a good way of thinking about your life. At which point you should probably have a bit of piece in each, investor and entrepreneur and maker, to have a well-rounded, I guess, career in that way, or skills. Sorry, then going back to product management, then I want to paint the bigger picture first, because product management is similar. I always think product management is a wonderful, useful function or role, because great PMs they're like I think it's a stepping stone or springboard to become a good GM. A GM is a great stepping stone to become a COO or CEO. So product management is one of the most important roles in a company. And I would say, like in my own experience, there are a lot of traits, and I'm sure there's a lot of writing out there about what makes a good PM. I'm sure there's tons of books on this as well, but for me, I'll describe it in this way. Number one, a great storyteller is so important to be a PM, because every product is a story. Even water has a story, a mouse, right? A cup, piece of software, even API endpoints. It's a story. And the ability to tell a story that resonates with people, for people to care about the product and invest themselves into creating that product, bringing it to fruition, that's such important. And I think for me, I learned how to tell stories after. And that wasn't my first trait. I had to learn how to tell stories around a product. Same with customers. When you talk with the customers, the value prop, how do you market it? When you think about growth, storytelling is so important. The second part, I would say a great storyteller is one, and actually those great storytellers also are very good, usually great at psychology, understand how people think in order to frame something. But not all great storytellers are great people managers. So you can be a great storyteller, but they may not be great at building a team themselves. I would say that's the second piece. Great PM needs to also be good, not only know how to craft stories and inspire people, but actually building teams.
Yep.
So that people come together, not just for the first, like, I'm so excited about this product, but go through as we know, the many, many challenges to bring this product to fruition, negotiating with your peers, negotiating with your counterparts, And that people skill, I think I see a lot of PMs struggle with that.
Mm.
How to be really good team builder. And the third thing I would say necessary to be great PM beyond storytelling, great team lead or team builders, is like logos. Is more like the logical, analytical aspect of it.
Mm.
Because there's so many trade-offs necessary to building products. And I don't mean someone who has to be data informed. Data informed is almost like a given already.
Yeah.
How do you logically make decisions? Are you optimizing for the long term, short term? Are you optimizing for growth? That logical, analytical aspect is extremely important. So I see people who are engineers that turn PMs are usually very good at it, already thinking analytically, but maybe someone who's coming from the art side, psychology or content side, become a PM, may then have to add that skill set to become a good PM.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Is that, some people, let's say they're good at one thing, right? I remember one of the devs mentioned is that a suitcase you have different skills. Mm-hmm. When you started off as an engineer, maybe you're really good at analytical thinking, being data driven. But how do you tell a story? How do you motivate your team, or even not enemies, I guess, is like within the same company who try to compete with the same resources, right? How do you take them along your route, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you are competing for resources in a company. So how do you tell the story in a way and this might be competing is one thing, but prioritization.
Right, prioritization, yeah.
Everything is prioritized. Everything's on a list. It's not lateral. It's not on the same page. It's always a list.
Yeah, definitely. I think being a PM also helped me to, maybe vice versa, like being the mom helped me to be a better PM. Because I feel like, okay, I can prioritize better, thinking about bigger pictures. And then these are all transferable skills.
Yes, being a mom does help. I think being a parent
helps, yeah.
Your days have to be much more structured.
Yeah, 100%. So the next question is kind of, just for our curiosity, if you had to describe a typical day for you, now you came from the engineering leadership CTO role. Now you're stepping into this entrepreneurial world and you're running a business. What does a typical day for you, what does that look like?
I think it's a great question for myself, to be honest. In the corporate world, your day is your calendar and your meetings a lot of times determine what your day looks like. And back then I would have maker time blocked out, usually in the mornings. I would have routines like Friday office hours. I would have, Monday or Tuesday team, staff meetings, right? Things like that, all hands every 4 weeks. So I have those routines set up because I'm optimizing around my immediate, my peers, and so on. In my portfolio life right now, I have a lot of quote unquote freedom, but I also have a lot of responsibility. So actually I've designed my days very differently today. So I'll give you an example. The 3 things I spend, I won't give too long an answer, but I would say I try to do. First of all, I have 3 kids, so it's important context. So mornings, I don't always do this, but I know my wife appreciates when I actually make breakfast for the kids. 6 to 7, right? So yes. She doesn't have to be the one thinking about did the kids eat.
Yep.
So most of the days I do it, and I'll tell them, guys, you got to eat protein first. Make sure you have some protein before you leave. So that's morning. And then when I still have somewhat of a maker schedule in the morning. In this case, when I say maker, I balance a few things. One, because I'm also on a board for a nonprofit called IDF, Immune Deficiency Foundation. I'll give you a quick example. This morning, I'm chairing a particular work stream. So I'm spending time figuring out how to move that work stream forward with the rest of the board members and the staff. And then I make sure Wisdom Water is running well. Even though I don't have to be at the retail location on a day-to-day basis, my focus is very much on the B2B aspect of it, which means how are we doing on delivering to the customers we have, whether it's bottling, labeling, as well as getting new accounts, the pitches we're out there, the response to RFPs, if you will. the sales and marketing aspect of it. So I spent quite a few hours on those. That's like creative. For example, we had to create new labels for a new empanada, Argentinian empanada restaurant
Oh, okay.
this morning. And I have designers this one is in Germany. So this is when we overlap, and we would go back and forth on Telegram or Notion, and then make sure that we have the label.
Okay. Wow.
And we have sponsorships, like event this weekend. So I want to make sure the sponsorship is set up, is ready to go for this weekend. And then I would say the afternoon is much more open. Depends on the day. I would say what I like to do, and I'm always going to do this, is reading. Reading could be about investment, could be about AI, could be about the business, water business itself, because there's still so much that I'm trying to do. I'll give you an example. So it's more specific. I actually don't read much about elections. It's something I try not to read about, even there's so much
Too
content out.
stressful. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
It's all opinion pieces
Yes.
at this point. So what I try, so there's actually a website called Shortform, and I've heard of Shortform. Shortform is a great actual website. So I often read, and I should print out. Shortform is it's a website where they summarize books.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it has been a great resource for me. I'll give you an example. Like earlier this week, I print out like PDFs from there. There's a few. This is just one of the books. This book I'm just picking up from my table. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Okay. Okay. I like that. Like slow things down a bit. Okay.
And then the other one I'm reading, the summary. Oh, it's a book, a new book by Daniel Pink called When. It's like the rhythm of your day. How do you harness the rhythm of your day so that you can live more and work more intentionally? This is actually very, very on topic for what you're asking. And the reason I'm reading these things is because, one, I don't have enough time to read full books, even though I have a lot of books right behind me. This helps me to get summary, and I decide which books to actually get physically. And actually, as part of Wisdom Brand, because our brand is about making good decisions for your body and your mind.
Yeah.
I actually bring the books I love into the store, and I create quotes from the highlights I have into posters.
Oh, wow. Nice. That's awesome. Okay. So you're saying you read the summaries, and then the summaries look interesting enough to you. That's when you get to the book. So you don't waste your time like picking out, oh, would I enjoy this book or do I abandon it if you feel like it's not your vibe or something? Okay.
Yeah. It's like try before buy.
Yeah.
A little funnel before you actually make the purchase, if you will.
Right. That's awesome. I haven't done things like that. Yeah, I also have a list of books. Half of them I read, half of them is on my list. But usually I just see my feed from Goodreads, like what the other people are reading.
Oh, Goodreads.
Or like the top list from like New York Times or like ranking. So I think I tend to follow the trend a little bit. But I like what you discovered here is that you don't have to limit yourself to whatever is popular or trending. You get down to knowing what's ahead of you, and then if that topic is not limited to the bestsellers, right? If that topic interests you, you can dive deeper. I love that. Okay.
Yeah, much more interest based. And I think one thing is to ask yourself is like, what areas do you want to grow in?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm going to ask you this question, and now I wonder that determines what you want to read.
Yeah. So what area do I want to grow in? One thing I've been trying to, I actually packed 2 books for my trip, but I didn't read them. So that's the thing to do this weekend. There's one book called Feel Good Productivity by a famous YouTuber, Ali Abdal. He was a doctor and then turned into a YouTuber, and then he grew his channel to like 5 million plus. And then he also has like Academy for YouTube business and stuff. And then there's another book I packed called The CEO Within. So these are the books I want to understand. How do I create a system for myself that I feel fulfilled, productive, and also, lack of better word, don't lose my shit, right? There are so many overwhelmed things in your life.
Okay.
I have 1 kid and you have 3 kids, right? There are things from work, from life, like chores, and then this is also election year. But how can I stay focused to what matters to me the most, find a good productivity system? So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, what matters to you the most?
Yeah.
That's something to focus on. And election, for example, election is going to happen no matter what.
Right,
Most
right,
people, many people already know, depending on the state you're in. So therefore, what you do, especially if you're not in a swing state, matters very little emotionally, physically, and so on to the outcome of the particular election. You still go out vote, but I see a lot of energy expanded in that area. That's why I was talking about it. In your home life, I can totally relate with the 3 kids, and I have a portfolio approach. Actually, I do some consulting too.
Okay.
Whether it's about growth of the product, whether it's about new CEO role, how do they become best in their own role, startup, or engineer or product. So those, when I say what, and so therefore, like when I read these things, the reason I'm reading these kinds of books right now, at least for this next couple of weeks, is because I don't want to feel that hurrying, the busyness. You're so busy. Busy doesn't mean productive.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking at, let's say the wisdom water, I can be busy 24/7 just with that alone.
Yeah.
However, I had to be very clear, no different than a PM actually, is what are the drivers for the business? How healthy are their drivers? And what are the goals I need to set? What realistic goals can I set? For them, that determines how hard it's going to run. Like for example, like I'm thinking about how do we open up more retail locations is one. And I could literally be out there looking at locations. I could literally visit every single water, other competitors and trying to buy them out. I could, and actually I started reading the franchise book as well to say, okay, what's the franchise model? So there's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
But the goal was, okay, by the end of next year, I want to have 2 more. And I'm open to like franchising model, which I think is possible routes, maybe 1 franchise and 1 owned position. So I think just having that gives you more stability versus like an open-ended goal that I might constantly chasing over. Same thing with B2B expansion too. What kind of accounts do I want to close and why?
Yeah.
I have more of it's still iterating. I'm still testing it out. What size, what margin, right, is worthwhile, which one's not. But just having some criteria that's evolving helps me to decide which opportunity to go after, and therefore not going after every single opportunity that could be available.
I love that how you're running a business as if you're running a tech company as a CTO, right? And what is the OKR? Yeah, it's the same, right? I think that's in life. A lot of things are transferable skills or complementary that you set goal for your company, right? Not just, I don't know what happened with the company before you acquired them. Maybe they were just like being slow and steady, but once you took over, you realize, oh, we want to set more aggressive but also realistic goals. What is the quarterly goals we want to hit? And then where do we spend resources, marketing budget? So just like how you run a large corporation like BuzzFeed, now you're focusing on how do you make this water brand maybe a household name? How do you grow a business? That is really cool.
Yeah, and I think if one takeaway from this podcast, I hope people see, once I want people to stop pigeonholing, one another into whether the role they're in, the title, and so on. I find that the longer I'm alive, people are much more capable and versatile than we give credit to them for.
Yeah.
And especially doing interview processes. And when I see a very rigid interview process, and I'm just like, that could be a different podcast episode just about interviews.
Yes.
And now that I, quote unquote, have a small business owner role as an example, right? But the way I think about the business, you said, it's very similar, data informed. And actually, when I took over, I wrote a growth plan. Before I bought the business, I wrote a growth plan.
Oh, okay.
Let's test. No different than if you're a PM and if you're interviewing for a role, they could ask, now that we give you some numbers, you've seen pieces of this, you signed the NDA, you saw some numbers. Based on what you see, what would you do if you're a growth PM, as an example?
Yeah.
Same thing. And I think buy then build is very much a growth PM first. I think at least like when I look at this business, like I think of like a growth PM. And I say, okay, he has a retail side, but no B2B. let's break it down. What do I need to do for retail?
Mm-hmm.
Is that efficiency driven?
Yeah.
Which helpful already. So we did that. We're digitizing inventory. And what about pricing? Same thing. Look at the prices. Make sure the pricing. Look at inventory. Which ones sell? Which ones don't sell? Right. And then to how do we get more customers in? So that has helped. Like year over year, we're like 30. It's like a 33, 50% year over year on a monthly basis between last year and this year. Pretty much took over and then this year.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. Wow.
Good. Of course, the goal is like, what's next year? Is it going to be another 50% growth? Probably not. And probably not because the initial bump is from all the improvements we did from rebranding, operational flow, inventory, all those things. Then I'm going to wait and see 2024 to 2025, like the 2025 goal, what I set. And for this business, you want to be steadily growing more linearly.
Yeah.
And also, same thing with the PM, you think about adjacent product category.
Yes. The expansion pack. Yes.
Right?
Add-ons, yeah.
For us. So B2B, like we started at the end of last year, we have like 20 accounts, which is good. Of course, different sizes, right? What size of the accounts are and so on, right? So we have to make sure we have a good mix there.
Mm-hmm.
Then we start doing new product as well. So like stainless steel bottles. I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that car, that vintage car.
This is a 1969 Dodge Charger. And we're doing a muscle trio. Again, this is storytelling. This is about community.
Yes.
And not, I'm going to tell you, no water store could have done this. And I'm not modeling my store based on anyone else's anyway. I'm thinking more about the needs or jobs to be done, right? Let's use some PM of the customer.
Yes.
Same thing. Everyone here in SoCal has stainless steel. I will argue most of us have way too many. If you open our cabinet, it's like 20, different Yetis of the world, Stanleys of the world are occupying everyone's car and cabinets.
Yeah.
They all have this colorful shade happening. I would say Stanley is doing more collabs, but on the culture point of view, I'm not focusing on pop culture. I'm the opposite. Like I'm not focusing on the best sellers. I'm focused on local. My strategy and my differentiation. So I look around this area and say, who are the communities? And so there are many of them, golfers to wine country to auto enthusiasts to actually fitness is a big part here. But I like the auto part. There's a lot of people who love classic cars. We have a lot of car shows, hot rod shows that I never knew existed before. I'm going to go into that community and I talk to them. Many of them are customers.
Yeah.
User research. So I just talked to them. And I decided, okay, based on the conversations, I'm going to do a muscle car trio that shows the best classic cars, muscle cars on the models. And I did research. There's nothing like this out there.
Okay.
So these are like original or limited edition.
Yeah.
With 3 cars, Dodge Charger, the Mustang, the 1969 Mustang, Boss 429, like the one in John Wick, is going to be on the next bottle.
That's amazing. Yes. That's amazing. I love that you have your own unique and even like non-conventional go-to-market strategy, right? You're carving out your own path and stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then the prototyping stage, I would say, from a product, let's talk about product management like terms, this prototype, because you have to validate the market. You're prototyping it. You're not overspending.
Right.
So limited batches of this. And I also know you have to bring the right product to the right segment, bring to them.
Yep. Yeah.
For example, we're going to start sponsoring auto shows, car meets. We started doing one a couple of weeks ago. Get to know the people. And then when I bring our car, and actually I bought, instead of just showing the bottles, we have a model car. These are collectible, so I put it in the glass.
That's amazing.
Like a shoe you would put, right?
Yeah.
Like you would put, like, you don't wear, like, this pair of shoes not for wearing. It's for this. So I have a model car like this big, 1:18 kind of ratio. That's the same car that's on the bottle.
Okay.
So that would tell the story of what this bottle is. And when I go to shows, they will see the car in the plexiglass lit up, and then they will see the bottle second. So again, that's like more storytelling in person, so that it's not just like any other bottle that you see out there. We're testing it out. I'll let you know how well
That's
it goes.
amazing. I can definitely see the creative maker side of you, that you can envision, hey, this is what, your target audience would like and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The last bonus question, kind of similar to the retail e-commerce part. So I work at Stitch Fix. We are a fashion e-commerce company. And I personally subscribe to our own products. I get a new fits every other month. I have stylists pick things that will work with my budget, with my body shape, with my style and stuff. So I'm curious, what is your favorite clothing brand? What are some of your fashion choices?
You know what's really interesting about coming from New York to West Coast? My clothing had definitely changed.
Okay, yep.
New York, like I remember, like I really like Ted Baker, and like John Barbados is still one of my favorite all time. Their blazers especially, because they're just so unique. The lapels, design, the cut. So John Barbados will be all time. But coming here, we don't wear the blazers, as much, right? I mean, not even now, September 24th, it's like today's 80.
Yeah,
So
yes. Same in the Bay Area.
I say there are two brands now. I basically wear just those two brands aside from my own clothes, my own like merch. One, I started golfing, and there's a brand called True, like TRUE.
Okay.
Shoes. I have maybe, I don't know, 15 pairs of those. There's golf shoes, but they don't look like golf shoes. They look like everyday shoes, super comfortable, breathable, and some of them are waterproof because, the course can be wet. So that is all I wear, True shoes. And then there's a California brand called Built for clothing, BYLT.
Yes, I heard about this. One of the other podcast guests recommended that brand as well.
Yeah, so I wear my pants, my t-shirt usually. If you go to my closet right now, it's the one section is all Built pants, and they're like specific colors I love, and it's perfect for this area. And my body shape also fits that kind of pants, jogger type. It's stretchable. You can move in it, and it still looks good. And you can be dressed up or dressed down, depending on whether it's jogger or like how it tapers at the end of the pants. So BYOT is like Built and True are the two my staples.
Wow. Thanks for the recommendations. So it sounds like very versatile, very West Coast. You have like athleisure, right? Like works for your hobbies, but athleisure, but you also have a more like versatile, like the pants could dress up and down. That's amazing. And my favorite brand is probably 41 Haythorn. It's our in-house brand at Stitch Fix.
41.
So, 41 Haythorn, yeah. You cannot get anywhere else. I think that's something I learned about e-commerce. It's similar, like Nordstrom has their own Nordstrom brand, right? So Stitch Fix, we have our own in-house or white labeled or our own developed brand. That's more like 41 Haythorn is more like a classic, contemporary work style clothes for women and stuff. So that's what I like. And I have a box actually coming in today. I have a few dresses from there. So it's pretty excited.
That's cool.
Try it out later. Yeah.
41 Hawthorne, I'm looking right now. Yeah, it's like a modern take.
Yeah, modern looking, yes.
Some classic blazer even.
Yep. All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.